We're online, by the way. So, again, we have about 5 to 6 different countries and all the different states represented here with us tonight, here in wonderful Sedona, Arizona. Rama, are you ready to go on the slides? This is Rama John Kogan, by the way. He runs our publishing program. Rama, hold your hand up. He's a lifelong Sedona resident of 26 years. I think to live in Sedona and be a lifelong resident, you have to live here 3 years, isn't it? Or is it 3 months? I forgot. So he's a lifelong resident. And any questions you have about our publishing program or anything, you can question Rama on. He's been doing this now for 3 years, and he does it every day, sometimes 7 days a week. Okay, so how many of you have books you've already written? A good portion of you. Why are you here? Go ahead. Educate. Have you attempted publishing yet? Sam is now. Well, how many of you have attempted to get your books published? How many of you have gotten your books published? Okay. What has been the major problem for those of you that have gotten your books published? What's been the problem? Why are you here? Because if what you were doing was so effective, we wouldn't have to worry about spending this Tuesday evening together, correct? What's been the problem? Enough of them aren't getting out. How many of you self-published? Okay. Anyone use iUniverse, Author's House? Something like that? Good. So it's not getting out there. Well, let me ask you this. Because this is kind of going to move into a portion of my lecture a little bit down the road, but I really feel I need to bring it up now. How do books sell? By what? Word of mouth. Do you understand that? Okay. What makes people talk about your book? Sam? Right. Do you understand that in today's market, and this is a very critical understanding that you need to grasp, people don't necessarily buy information. That's second. What they buy is feeling. This is very important. If you don't grasp this fact, if you don't grasp this understanding, everything I'm going to share with you tonight won't work. So a book has to be written from where? Right. Has to be written from your heart. When you write a book from your heart, you normally write the book fast. Have you noticed that? How many of you have ever been in a state where the words have just poured out of you? That's a state. That's the state, and that's the only state that you should ever write a book from. Because my experience has taught me, and just to give you a short summation of my experience with outside the formal credentials that I've shared with you in your notes, I've been working with new authors for 31 years. I've worked with over 90,000. I've given this lecture or some lecture like this over 4,600 times. I'm self-taught. Yeah, so I'm starting to get pretty good at it. I'm self-taught. I tried everything orthodox that my education taught me, my educational background, and nothing worked. I went to the best sources I could find in publishing, and they couldn't tell me scientifically or step by step how to succeed. So out of desperation, I asked for divine guidance, got it. 2 days later, I woke up in the middle of a dream, saw exactly how to not only write a book, but how to publish it, put it into place. 6 weeks later, sold my first book to Harper & Row, who was the third largest publisher in the world at the time, tripled my salary, and haven't worked for anybody since, which is really good for anyone that would have hired me, plus good for me as well, too. And I started working with new authors. And I'm a systematic guy. I don't mind learning through trial and error as long as I can get to the point where I can say, here's a universal understanding. Here's a universal tendency. Here's something, one of the pillars of understanding I need to put my arms around. Well, everyone I worked with that I've been successful with, and tens of thousands of my students, thank God, have gone on to publish books. Tens of thousands. And each person that comes to one of my Write Your Book in a Weekend retreats, the reason the retreat works, the biggest reason, it's not because of me, not because of my techniques, because of the fact they work because of the fact that the people that show up at the retreats have books inside them, and we just help them tap into them. Okay? Now, you've all been there. When I asked you the question about how many of you have experienced when writings is poured through you, every hand went up. That state you were in, or state you've been in many times before, is what I refer to as the divine author within state. That's a state by which your book literally comes through you on its own in an unadulterated manner. So all books need to be written fast if they're going to be from the heart. Does that make sense? Because when you go slow, you spend too much time doing what? Right. And all great books need to be written from where? Okay, that's very important. Because we as authors are paid for our entertainment value. Now, if we can get some facts and some wisdom through as we're writing these bits of entertainment, that's great. But people want to feel. Now, another very important point. Why do our readers, and you're all good readers too, I know that, because you're all great procrastinators. So when you procrastinate in between books, you read, right? Let me tell you something. You start writing books, start getting them published, man, you won't read it hardly at all anymore because you're so into your own stuff. It's a very narcissistic art form. Okay, so to reach your audience, you have to make them what? Correct. You got that point? You got that point. Okay. Why is it so important for them to feel? Why don't they fall in love with math books or books on physics? Make them, yes, they live vicariously through you, but what are they looking to get out of you? If they feel, it tells them that they're what? Yeah. You understand that? Okay, let's repeat that. Remember this. If you make people feel, it verifies to them that they are alive. We're so darn busy. Especially in this country, we're so darn busy. Very rarely do we have time to stop and remember that we're a human being, that we're here for a bigger purpose than what we fill our time with. You got to make them feel. What do you got to do first to make them feel? You got to feel first. Do you understand all this? All the strategy and everything I'm going to go over about all these books and everything won't work if you don't put your arms around the fact that you have to write your books from your heart. You know the average writing speed at one of my retreats? 2,700 words per hour. What is the average length of an American adult book in today's world? It's half of what it was in 2008. What is it now? 35,000 words is the average length of an American adult book. So, if you get in divine connection with your writing and allow that book to come pouring through you, and it comes out at, say, 2,000 words an hour, how long is it going to take you to complete your book? 17 and a half hours. Make sense? That's why we write books on a weekend. It's not that we're trying to sell a Ginzu knife here. This is the best way to do it. I'm going to tell you, if you wasted as much time as I have over the last few decades studying the great authors and what they had to say about when they were writing at their most peak expressive efficiency, they were all in an altered state. I don't know. I was writing it seemed like God was writing the book. The book wrote itself. The characters took over. Next thing I knew, I had a novel. That's the key. Creatively, expressionistically, communicatively. That's the key to writing a publishable book, is you got to write a good one that makes people feel. Last point I want to make on this. If you piss somebody off, does that hurt you? Does that make you feel? Piss somebody off. Does that make you feel something? People don't care if you make them laugh. They don't care if you make them cry. They don't care if you irritate them. Any of those feelings makes them feel alive, justifies that they have a place in this world. Again, I know many of you have heard me say this story before, but Howard Cosell, remember Howard Cosell? Did Monday Night Football for like 19 years. America hated him. He was America's first $1 million a year broadcaster. He got $1 million a year because people tuned in every Monday night through the fall and part of the winter because they hated him. They bitched about him till Thursday or Friday, and they couldn't wait to hear him again, to complain about him again the rest of the week. But he made people feel something, okay? If you think your readers are all going to feel good when they read your book, you're living in some type of la-la land. The fact that they feel something is all that matters. You're not responsible for how they feel. You're only responsible for sharing your feelings, so in response they share theirs. Does that make sense? Most important point. So, the question I want you to ask of yourself, if you've already written a book, if you've already published a book, is this: how fast did I write that book? If it took years, I'm not saying it's a waste of time. By no means am I saying it's a waste of time. I'm just saying maybe it wasn't written completely from the heart. And as a result, you haven't gotten the sales that you needed. You all know this. You're all good readers. You buy a novel on the way home. You get home, you climb in bed, you start reading the novel. You're really into it. But page 17 of the novel, the author loses connection with you. You stop reading, right? We aren't patient in this society. The minute you have a left brain burp as an author, you lose readers. The whole book has to be written fast. Has to be revised fast. That's very important. You have to revise it as quick as you write it because we want to revise it from a right brain, heartfelt state. We'll go through it several times, doing something different each lap through. But we want to come from that heartfelt state at all times so we don't ever let the cerebral side of ourselves take over the book, deaden it, and lose our readers. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of left brain stuff tonight, though. A lot of left brain stuff. Rama, can you go to the next slide, please? Follow along in your notes, please. All right. Let's get real human. Let's forget about publishing from the conscious perspective and look at it from a humanistic perspective. And I want you to take some notes here. Really, all of us are so busy with our time. It's not really worth doing anything unless we know we're going to get something substantial out of it. Doesn't it make sense? Okay. So what are some of the benefits that we can derive from a successful publication of our book? And Gwen, would you mind standing up? I want you to start thinking like a human being and quit trying to make yourself an author. What are some of the benefits? What's some of the freedoms? Raise your hand if you got a response. Right up here in the front row. Ice. You'd be working for yourself. Okay. I'm going to try to make you think. Okay, so if you were a successful published author, you would have vocational freedom. Correct?
Financial freedom. Financial freedom.
Financial freedom. Write all these down. Financial freedom. Thank you, Rebecca. Right up here, Gwen.
To make a difference in the world.
So, to make a difference in the world, what type of freedom would that be? Freedom to make a difference? Expressionistic freedom? Okay, write these down. Write these down. What other benefits or freedoms can we get? See Laura here in the front, please? How about freedom of locale? You can live in Sedona.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Travel. Books can travel where you can, or books can bring you places.
Freedom of influence. Freedom of influence. Freedom of locale. You can live anywhere you want. How about artistic freedom? Artistic freedom. Freedom of choice to do with your life what you want to do. You see, writers don't get paid per hour. We get paid per project. So if you can write a book in 3 days, and somebody else takes 3 years to write a book, you're getting a lot more money than the guy who took 3 years, right? Tom, do you have a suggestion?
Freedom from therapy.
Freedom from therapy. That's a great one. To build on that point, what I've discovered, again, is the reason people have been successful in my retreats is because they already have books stuck inside them trying to get out. I should say, stuck inside them trying to get out. And when that book comes through, it's a divine spiritual entity. And when it comes through you, it clears out all the stuff that keeps you from appreciating yourself as deeply as possible. Therapy. Freedom from therapy. Over here, Gwen?
Just freedom from your mind.
Peace of mind. Peace of mind.
Freedom to be true to yourself.
Freedom to be true to yourself. Gwen, come on up here so you can see the people.
I can see them, I just can't get to them fast enough.
Yeah. Do you understand what I'm moving you toward? So many of us have the goal of, I just want to be published. You can be published within an hour after this class tonight if you want. It isn't enough. You have to look at the byproducts of what you're getting. Now, what type of society we live in? Supposedly we live in a democracy, or they tell us that, right? I'm still following. I still believe in Santa Claus too. So does Sky. All right, but we also live in a capitalistic society, correct? So to be truly free, we need what? We need money, right? Because everything costs something. So that needs to be one of our byproducts too. So do you see the freedoms we're shooting for? So as we go over the different alternatives tonight with you about publication, we're going to look at each one of them and look at them and say, does this give us freedom? Or what chance does this give us freedom? Here's our goals: financial freedom, vocational freedom, freedom of locale, freedom of expression, freedom to make a change in the world, freedom from therapy, whatever. We're going to look at every alternative and say, what chance does this alternative give me to achieve the freedom I want to have? All right, Rama, next slide, please. How is market value determined in publishing? Again, we live in a capitalistic society. What is market value? Market value is simply becoming a household name. Recognized as an author, as a speaker, as a teacher, as a CEO. Market value. In writing, in publication, how do we acquire market value? We live in a capitalistic society. So how do we acquire market value? Through what? Sales. You understand? That's what it comes down to. The more books you sell, the more people will know you. Now, for every book, just as an aside here, put this in your notes. This is a very important fact. For every book that you sell, or every copy of a book that you wrote that someone reads that they like, how many readers, potential readers, does that one reader directly affect in 2 weeks? Somebody looks at your book, they like it. Within 2 weeks, how many people will they directly affect to buy your book? 5. What's the most recognizable bestseller list in America? New York Times. How do you get on the New York Times? Sales, but what are they looking for? They're looking for something specific. How many books do you have to sell? Between 2,000 and 3,000 a week for a few weeks. Write that down. So to get on the New York Times bestseller list, 2,000 to 3,000 books sold a week for a few weeks, whatever that translates to. There's also another way to get on bestseller lists, is through cumulative number of sales. Cumulative number of sales of a book over a few years. What magic mark should we be shooting for? 100,000 copies sold. So it's either market value is determined by rate of sale or cumulative number of sale. When you acquire market value as an author, it's having literary tenure. Stay with me on this. This is a very important concept because this is what our freedom equates to, having literary tenure. Literary tenure means you can write really crappy books and people will still buy them. Really, that's what it means. How many of you have fallen in love with somebody's book, fell in love with the author, changed their life, went on to buy the next book, the next book, the next book, the next book, and each book got progressively worse? Ever happen? That's literary tenure. You sell 1 million books that directly affect 1 million lives. There's always going to be 500,000 of those people just like me that'll go back and buy your book again no matter how bad it gets because we're still looking for that spark. You understand? That's literary tenure. Now, that sounds like a lot of books to sell, doesn't it? What access, what size of a market can we directly, as authors, directly access in this world? Laura?
A lot of people get their friends and their associates to buy on the same day or week on Amazon.
The size of the market that we can directly affect ourselves, that we can touch, is 6.2 billion people because of the internet. We have access. Another important point. These are all really important points, so I hope you're taking notes. You're all good readers, right? More than anyone else, in regard to a book, who do you want to hear from? Who do you want to hear from? The author, right? You don't want to hear from a bookstore owner, an editor, publicist, literary agent. You fall in love with an author's book, that's the person you want to hear from, isn't it? Past forms of publicity and promotion were all based upon indirect connection with the author. Indirect. Somebody trying to sell you a book, but never it being the author. Because of the internet, authors have the ability to connect to 6.2 billion people, because that's how many people have computers on our planet. So when you're looking at selling 100,000 books, but your market's 6.2 billion, it's not that daunting, is it? Odds are much better. Rama, next slide, please. Books sell by? A lot of people think promotion. Promotion's only designed to do one thing: influence enough people who will hopefully like your book that they'll tell everybody else. All books sell by word of mouth. We see that with movies too, don't we? If you notice now that movies, they come out, they start promoting them 9 months in advance. You know, they're not talking about, coming out July 9th. Go to the theaters and watch Frozen with my daughter. Coming out July 9th. Because they start promoting so early. So by the time July 9th shows up, we're fired up to go to that movie, aren't we? We're going. Comes out on a Friday night, we go, we pack the place. By Saturday, no one shows up. Why? Because it sucked. Promotion got people there, right? And they were hoping the movie was going to be good enough that the word of mouth would keep it going for weeks before it went to video. But word of mouth can kill a book or kill a movie just as quickly as it can feed it. But it's word of mouth that's the key. Rama, next. The way to get market value is through two things. Hope you're following along in the notes. Saturation publishing and going viral. Let me explain what both of those are. We have 4 types of readers in our world. There's 4 different types of books available in our world. I'm not talking genres, I'm talking styles. There are books published by conventional book publishers. You all familiar with conventional book publishers? Who's the biggest conventional book publisher in the world? No. Random House. When I first got involved with publishing, And at a very deep level, back in 1982, there was approximately 47 major book publishers. There's 7 now. Random House owns 28 of those. That's how big they are. So there's books published by conventional book publishers. There are books published by print-on-demand publishers, which I'll talk to you about. There are ebooks, and there are audiobooks. There are 4 different versions of book readers. Each one of us leans toward one of those 4 areas. The key to being able to increase market value is to get into every reader in every one of those 4 different zones. Saturation publishing. That's the only way you can cover the market. We do that through going viral. Utilizing the internet to go viral. Letting the internet work for us. Somebody loves us, they talk about it, next thing we know, just like, what's her name, the woman Boyle? Suzanne Boyle, was it? 3.5 million hits, YouTube hits in one day. That could happen to us too. Okay, Rama? To successfully achieve the aforementioned, you need a quality product and presentation, control, and a plan. Ready to take some notes? A quality product and presentation. What does that mean? What does that equate to? Write this down. Number 1, an artistically designed and formatted book. An artistically designed and formatted book. I mean, it has to look pretty. It has to look like a book. Can you do this yourself? Yes. Will you do a good job? No. It's like dressing in the dark for an author to try to format his own book. You come out and you're like, wow, I've never seen so many colors on one body at the same time. So many stripes going in different directions. Okay. Artistically competent, formatted book. It's got to look like a book. To prove this point, who was the best-selling author that initially attempted to advance the popularity of ebooks and failed greatly? This happened about 15 years ago. Who? Stephen King. He was getting tired of making $25 to $30 million per book. The reason he was getting tired of making that amount of money was because his publisher was making 10 to 15 times as much and they weren't doing anything. So finally he got irritated and said, I'm going to self-publish my own book. I'm going to put it on the internet. I'm going to open up a website. I'm going to let my readers come and read my book, the first 3 chapters, for free. And then if they like it, I'm going to let them download it for a price. Failed miserably. Sold a few thousand copies when he's used to selling several million. The reason it failed miserably is, number 1, because we weren't computer literate at the time. You know? What are we going to do? Run off an inkjet printer and carry all these pages around? His books are mammoth, man. You know, you have to weight lift to be able to carry one of those things around. We don't like that. We didn't want to read it on a screen either. So it didn't look like a book, so people didn't want it. Failed because it did not look like a book. We as Americans, we don't care what type of book it is, but it's got to look like one. That's very important. Quality presentation. Professional formatter. There are people in this world that do nothing but take manuscripts from authors and make them into really good-looking books. I don't care how good your book is, how much it makes people feel. If it doesn't look good, they don't want it. It also has to be professionally edited. Professionally edited. It's very important. There's 2 forms of editing. Hope you're all taking notes. This is invaluable information. It took me 30 years to come up with this, so don't lose any of it. First type of editing is style editing. Style editing is when you deal with an extremely well-read editorial source that can take your book and compare it to others that have been done in similar genres and tell you if you meet the capabilities and communication skills of previous authors. That's essential. Style editor. Style editor. I know you've all got good friends and probably some have English degrees, some may be librarians. they're not qualified. You can get to the best editors in the world right now from your home computer, your home phone. I'll teach you how. But a style editor. Second, copy editor, punctuation, spelling, and grammar. You may have been one of those fortunate souls who got an A+ in grammar or English. I didn't. It bored the heck out of me. But even if you are really competent for somebody else, that doesn't mean you'll be competent for yourself. Also, always make sure it's professionally edited. Also, as part of this presentation, you need a website, a good website, an author's website. Don't try to sell your crystals and your incense and your books all on the same site. It looks very unprofessional. You have to have an author's website. It has to be fast, colorful, picturesque, informationally based. Your website, it has to be easy to change unless you have millions of dollars you want to stick into changing your website. I would recommend going through WordPress. Allows you to change your website as easily as you would change a Word document. WordPress. Should have a photo of you. It should scream out. Your website should scream out, "Here's my book, what's about?" The picture of your book should be right there. It should say what the book's about. Should have some verifying accolades, people that are saying nice things about you. A photo of you is essential. You should have a good shopping cart. You know what a shopping cart is for a website? Enables people to buy your book without any hassles. Now, some people, I'm a big budget shopper, but not when it comes to certain issues in my life. When it comes to shopping carts, my website, I'm going to get the best one I can. Because number one, it makes a transition through the process of paying for one of my products easy and fast. Number two, and this is really important, copy this down. A good shopping cart allows you to capture the name and address, email address of your purchasers. So you don't have to remarket every time you come up with something new. The best shopping cart I know is called One Shopping Cart. One Shopping Cart. It's going to cost $100 a month. PayPal, I think, is $35 a month. But I mean, if you want to be a best-selling author, if you want to make a living doing this, there are certain things you don't want to cut corners on. One of them is shopping carts. You also want to have a capture page on your website. You're going to see that on an average, a person will go to your website 11 times before they'll purchase. 11 times on average. Some people will go there 50 times, some people go there once, but on average 11 times. A capture page is where you give away something for free. If you go to my website, I give away a copy of my CD, Transitioning Back to the Author You Were Meant to Be, which takes you beyond all of your blockages to connect you with the author you already are. All of your writing blockages, all of your emotional blockages, all of your excuses. You can download it for free. I feel great in giving something away. I also know, from a business perspective, I've got your name and address, and now I can follow up with you if I'd like to on my other products. So you need a capture page. Give something away for free. Give something away for free. It's not only good customer relations, but it gives you the opportunity to not have to remarket. So let's say in the next year, 20,000 people go to your site and either buy something or show an interest in what you're doing. When you come out with your book, you got 20,000 people you can sell that book to right away, right? Got it? You don't have to remarket the book, so it should have a capture page. That's very, very important. A capture page. So a professionally done website. Your website also needs to be search engine optimized. Do you know what that means? I'm going to explain just in case you don't. SEO. Write SEO down. Search engine optimized. Which means it's fine-tuned to the desires and needs of Google. 87% of web searches are done through Google. The rest are done through Microsoft, Yahoo, or whomever else. And they mimic, the three next biggest search engines mimic what Google does. So if you are in line in step with what Google does, the others, you'll get the others too. So when people go and look for a specific thing, which you've categorized yourself as being, it'll be directed to your site. You'll be on the first page. That's the goal, to have your site search engine optimized. Which brings up another word I want to use, branding. I can say this because I live in Sedona, Arizona, and I won't be seen as weird as doing this, but, you know, our souls are asking us to write. There's a message that our souls are asking us to project into the world. The sooner we get to that message, the sooner we'll become one with that message, and everything starts to happen a lot quicker. Do you know what I'm saying? So a branding is simply getting in touch. A soul branding is simply getting in touch with the message of your soul so it can more effectively be represented in everything you do. I heard many years ago that every author, no matter how many books he or she wrote, only really had one message. And I thought that was kind of strange. At that point, I had written 22 books, and I looked at my books, and they're all over the place. The only thing the different subjects my books really showed me was that I probably have a multiple personality state, because they're all over the place. So I decided to test this theory. I decided to go back through all my books very slowly and listen to them and see if I heard the same message. I did. Every one of my books, as different as they are, all say the exact same thing. What my message is you have a purpose. If you live it, you'll be happy. If you don't, you won't. Every one of my books, nonfiction books, dealing with instruction, writing, publishing, baseball, World War II, novels, everything. They all say the same thing. If you ask John Grisham, if he was here right now, and he'd say, John, what's the secret to your success? He'd say, well, I take a really good person, I put them in a really bad place, and write them out of it. You got one too. The sooner you get to that understanding, the easier it is to embrace and go with it and represent it in everything that you do. Your website should be a representation of that branding. Second factor you need to achieve success is control. When you write your books, who cares most about your book? Who? You do. How many of you feel like your book is your baby? Yeah. So is anyone going to take care of that baby the way you would? So who should be in control of running that baby's life and giving that baby what it needs? Who? Absolutely. Now, in conventional publishing, we don't have any control. You understand that? They tell you what they want. You either do it or you don't. You do it, you get paid very little. You don't do it, you don't get paid at all. So information's extremely important to us as authors because we have just entered, since the recession hit, we have just entered into the golden age of publishing when all of the control has returned to the artist. All of the ability to do everything the publishers haven't been able to do for a long time, we now have the ability to do. And we're going to do it because we care most. Control is important. Information is control. That's what we're sharing tonight, is the information you need to be the success that inside of you, you already are. And if there was one thing I could do tonight, I would get inside your heads and remove everything you ever heard about writing or publishing. I'm going to tell you, in my estimation, everything I've gone through, and I've gone the hard way, I'd say over 99% of what I heard, learned, or was taught was completely the opposite of what the truth was. A plan. You need a plan to put into play. All right, let me challenge you on this. Come to one of my retreats, you write a book in a weekend. How soon can you expect, if you really open up to the possibilities and really give into the process, how soon do you think you could have your book published? Within a month, easy. Within a few weeks, possible. How soon could you end up on a bestseller list? If you maintain the control and confidence. I know confidence comes through experience. Right now, you're just going to have to take that leap. Sir?
A lot will depend on your list and your influence.
Timing, too. I've had people come out. I had one lady come out of a retreat one September in Atlanta. Last weekend of September, she wrote her book in a day and a half, 2 days. By the first week of November, she was a #1 Amazon bestseller. See, but again, come back to my initial point. Your book has to be a good book. A good book is defined by your ability to do what? Make people feel. She wrote it so darn quick she didn't have time to think about it. Didn't have time to screw it up. Do you realize that you stand a 78% chance of changing a right answer to a wrong answer if you go through a multiple choice test? Well, let's say there's 100 questions on it. You just go through and mark down what you think is right, what you feel is right real quickly. And then you go back to it and look at those 100 questions. You have a 78% chance of changing a right answer to a wrong answer when you start thinking. Fast, speed's the key. Just because it's taken other people 35, 40, 50 years to get there doesn't mean we have to go down that path. You understand? There are other paths. When I asked for divine guidance and I got it, within 6 weeks, I had tripled my salary, had to deal with a major book publisher, and was able to quit my job for good. You can do it even quicker now. On my next slide, please. Just to verify again, there are 4 forms of publishers. There are 4 forms of readers in our country. Conventional book publishers, print on demand, and I'll identify which each one of these are as we go on, ebook readers, and audiobook listeners. 4 different types of forms, 4 different types of readers, 4 audiences available to us. Saturation publishing simply says we publish in a way that we can get to all 4 at once. Gives us our best chance because we get to everybody. We're accessible to everybody. Understand? Okay. Rama, next. So let's evaluate each one of these one at a time, shall we? You're going to need to take a lot of notes. You don't want to lose this information, please. So we're going to rate each one of these from 0 to 10, 10 being the highest recommendation, 0 being the lowest. Conventional book publishers. Let me give you a little history lesson, first of all, behind them. Conventional book publishers used to care. They used to be owned by well-to-do families who really did not care if they made money because they were trying to positively influence society. They had other streams of incomes through railroads, ships, buildings, malls, whatever. Okay, so they got into publishing because, number 1, they wanted to bring greater attention to their family name. Number 2, they wanted to positively influence society. So they wanted to nurture authors as they came along. They wanted to bring them along. They wanted to bring brilliant minds front and forward into our consciousness. Back then, editors and CEOs that ran these publishing houses had carte blanche. They could do anything they wanted to. But 35% of their jobs were devoted to finding, nurturing, and bringing along new authors. They weren't looking for one-shot authors. They were looking to sign an author to a deal over 4 to 5 years, nurture that author's career over several books, in hopes that somewhere around the 4th or 5th books, that author would live to his or her potential, and then they could both reap a significant amount of return on their investment. But they brought them along. They were looking for long-term deals. They wanted to get in bed with an author and stay there for 25, 30 years. They were looking for the next great Einstein, the next Van Gogh, the next Hemingway. It was beautiful. There used to be a white knight system in publishing. There was an age of Camelot where you as a new author could be found and brought along and nurtured and made a success over a short period of time. And you'd have people that cared almost as much about your book as you did, that fell in love with your stuff. My first book was published in 1983, so I entered into a contract at the beginning of 1982 on the book. And my first editor, his name is Larry Ashmead at Harper & Row, probably one of the top 5 editors in the world at the time. Okay, I wrote a baseball book. Okay, I was a publicist for the Pittsburgh Pirates, used that to leapfrog into writing baseball books so I could become the author I wanted to be. So Larry, I went to New York one time, visited with him. He had a corner office, 53rd floor. And I went in, and first thing I noticed was Larry collected dried alligators. He had dried alligators of all sizes hanging from his ceiling. Second of all, he was a flamboyantly gay gentleman. You know, back in 1982, 83, that wasn't really popular, but Larry was who he was. I loved Larry for the fact that, you know, when Larry answered you, or when he presented himself, you knew you were getting the honest Larry. He was a wonderful human being. So as I was sitting across the desk from Larry that day, I said, Larry, I got a problem, and I need you to give me some answers to help me solve it. He goes, what is it? I said, I wrote a baseball book. You probably are not even a fan. He goes, I know nothing about baseball. I said, why'd you buy my book? Why'd you spend all this money and inquire for your publishing house? He goes, I don't buy books, Tom. I buy heart. I buy artists. And your heart was all over that. I don't care what you write about. I'd read it because you're there. The man spent oodles of hours answering probably what I thought at the time was really stupid questions. But he was nurturing me, he was teaching me, he was influencing. So much of what I share tonight is based upon the mentors I had back then. The market's changed, the alternatives have changed, but the psyche has not. No decision was ever made without my approval on my book. I remember when my cover came back, Larry said, do you like it? If you don't, we'll make another one. We'll make covers until we find one you like. Because they honored and respected the artist I was and knew that I had the insight. They had the skills, they had the knowledge, but I had the insight, and that's what they were buying. Does that make sense? Well, that's gone. 1995, conventional book publishing was taken over by whom? Fortune 500 companies who have one purpose and one purpose only, which is to what? Make money. So saving money means making money too, right? If you save it, you can keep more of it. Have you noticed in the last 15, 20 years that more books are published with typographical and grammatical errors than ever before? Have you noticed that? Who looks bad when a book comes out and has a lot of errors in it? Who's the one that looks bad? The author. So conventional book publishers look and say, well, why should I spend $5,500 getting this thing edited when Gwen's going to be the one that looks bad? Right? I'm not going to look bad. I can save $5,500. If it looks bad, she gets credited with it, not me. They established in 1995, these publishers informally established what I refer to, and take this down in your notes, a 90-10 system. 90-10. The 90-10 system equated to this. 10% of the books that they were going to publish, 10%, they would do everything to make them bestsellers. 90% they wouldn't do anything. The 10% that they were going to do everything to make it a bestseller were the books they invested the most money in. So they wanted to make it a bestseller because they wanted to recoup their investment. Very simple. If you're in the bottom 90%, they do nothing. They don't edit your books. They don't style edit it. They don't copy edit it. They do nothing. They don't promote it. Nothing. They're looking for authors that come along that are self-made human beings. How many of you have paid off loans? How many of you flipped a house to get a down payment on another house? How many of you worked and established a good credit rating so you get a loan to get a new car? They're looking for you because, see, they know that you'll take a book and you'll go out there and you'll sell the crap out of it and they'll derive all the income. So, and take this down in your notes, because we need a comparable value here. So, on a sale of a $20 book through a conventional publisher, how much could you expect to derive? How much of that $20 is going to end up in your pocket, the author? You create the product. About $1.25 after they go through all their expenses. About $1.25. So, one of the things we're looking for, one of the freedoms we're looking for to become a successful author is financial freedom, right? It feeds a lot of the other options. So how many of those books would you have to sell to become a millionaire? A lot. About 800,000 copies. Write that down. About 800,000 copies. Become a millionaire. For every book that's sold and sells for $20, how much would a conventional publisher earn? About $9. So you sell 800,000 books times 9. They made a significant amount of money, right? That's the way it's set up. So if you're not in the top 10%, they will do nothing. Now, here's another problem. In creating a high profit margin, we don't want to keep our overhead low, correct? So what happened to the Larry Ashmeads of the world that were making $300,000, $400,000 a year, bringing authors along? What happened to them? Goodbye. What's the average salary now of an editor, medium grade editor in New York City? It's about $35,000 living in New York City. Average level of experience is how many years? About 4. I knew Larry. Larry had been there 35 years, man. He'd been responsible for hundreds of best-selling books. Okay, so control. Amount of control that you have. 0. The last conventional book publisher I worked with was a small company out of New England called Adams Media. They were famous for writing books bestsellers, so I went with them. I took a deal, realized I made a mistake when I got a call from my editor one day, and she said, guess what? We just had a brainstorming meeting in the office, and we came up for a great title for your book. I said, I already have a title. Oh, we came up with a better one. Oh, okay, I'm interested to listen to your ideas. What's the title? How to Write a Best-Selling Book in 2 Days. It had nothing to do with my book. I said, it is a great title, but my book doesn't address that issue. Well, it doesn't matter, she said. It's a great title. I said, it's a great title, but my book does not cover that information. But people will buy the book, and then they'll hate me. But they'll buy the book. And I said, listen, I still have the money you gave me. I'm just going to send you a check and give it back to you. I'm going to cancel the contract. And if you try to do anything, I'm going to sue you. She goes, wait, maybe you do have a good idea for a title. I had no control. I was used to having all control 10 years earlier. So, level of expertise, maybe 2. Opportunity to become a millionaire, 2. Okay, let me come back to another basic point. As readers, you want to hear most from whom in regard to a book? You got that point? How many of you got up in 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning to watch the Today Show or Good Morning America because your favorite author was going to be on there? Okay, you want to hear from, no, they didn't say, they said, and so Mitch Neer's publicist is going to be here, or John Grisham's sister, you wouldn't show it up, right? But the author's going to be there, you get out of bed, and right, okay, you make my point. So, how many degrees of separation, conventionally, are there between you, if you go through a conventional publisher, between you and the reader? First, you have to get a literary agent. That literary agent has to influence an editor. That editor has to influence an editorial board. That editorial board has to influence a sales director. That sales director has to influence a sales staff. That sales staff has to influence Promotional director. That promotional director has to influence a promotional staff. That promotional staff has to influence a bookstore owner. That bookstore owner has to influence the reader. 9 degrees of separation. Do you understand how that diminishes your chances of being the success that you can be? All right, another depressing fact. Ability to take advantage of timely breaks in the market. You go with a conventional publisher right now. How long can you expect it's going to take for your books out into the market? 2 years. 2 years. So man, they're taking a really small dart, a really big dart, and throwing it at a really small dartboard. In 2 years, I think the consciousness of the country is going to be up there. Man, we don't know how we're going to feel from day to day in this country. How can you predict in 2 years? Right? You understand? So, they're happy if they only make money on 10 books out of 1,000 published. Percentage of the market share. How much of the market is currently controlled by conventional book publishers? Approximately 27%. Before 2008 was over 90%. We got a 2 here, ability to make timely breaks in the market, 0. Let's say you're an expert of something. You're an expert in some area. And something happens in your field of expertise that you could directly address through a book. Man, you got 2 to 3 years before the sucker gets out there. By doing it yourself, you could be out there in a few weeks. Ability to take advantage of timely breaks in the market, 0. Percentage of the market share, I would give them about a 3 there. Ability to reach your readers directly, 0. 9 degrees of separation. There are 9 degrees of separation between you and the reader if you go about things conventionally. Rama, next screen. Let's look at our next alternative. Print on demand. There's a name you want to remember. Ingram. I-N-G-R-A-M. I-N-G-R-A-M. Ingram. Ingram is the largest distributor of books in the world. That makes them the most valuable entity in the world. The biggest distributor is the most valuable entity because they acquire the most books. They satisfy the needs of the readers. Ingram has been in business over 100 years. They had a win-win philosophy before win-win became popular. When they saw what was happening in book publishing, they created a new alternative called print on demand. You see, it's a form of self-publishing. Very important point I want to make to you now, again. Conventional book publishers are trend what? Trend followers. Write that down. A very important concept. Best-selling authors are trend what? Setters. All right, so Skyla writes a book that's truly groundbreaking. A whole new approach to not only writing in a certain genre, but a whole new approach to approaching a certain topic. She sends it to me. I'm not her dad, let's say, just for a few minutes. And I'm an editor at a conventional book publishing house. I look at this book and it's truly revolutionary. What am I going to do with that book? I'm going to reject it. You know why? Because it's so different and so unique, just like she is, that I can't compare it to anything that's come before. So I can't gauge my risk. So I reject it. Henry David Thoreau, Neil Donald Walsh, John Grisham, Walt Whitman, Mark Twain. Did you ever hear of Mark Twain? All self-published initially. And hundreds of other names you'd recognize as well too. They had to self-publish because they couldn't get a publisher to pick them up. Even in the old golden age of publishing, because they couldn't gauge the risk value. And it was extremely inefficient and expensive to self-publish before 1995. Because you had to get a book typeset. Remember when we all went to high school and we went on that field trip to the local newspaper and they took us to the press room? There's those poor god-awful guys there with glasses this thick putting together a newspaper one word at a time. It's very expensive to get a book typeset. It would cost you $40,000, $50,000 depending upon the length of your book. Second problem is you had to carry an inventory of books. You see, you couldn't go to a print shop and say, gee, I'd like to get 3 copies of my book, because if they use a printing press, they got to call a crew in, they got to do all kinds of tests and blah, 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 blah. The 3 copies of your book may cost $10,000. So you had to carry an inventory. So you have to come in and say, I want to do 8,000 to 10,000 copies of my book to bring the price value of it down low enough that you can make money when you sold it. Make sense? So now you got another $50,000 involved. You got $80,000 involved in publishing your book in the olden days, going through self-publishing. And the problem was then, next problem was, books are sold through bookstores. That's a problem. Because who controlled the bookstores? Conventional publishing. So if there was room on a bookshelf for you, they'd maybe let you have a copy or two, but they're not going to promote the sucker because they got their own books and they're trying to sell. So many a self-published author passed away with hundreds of thousands of books in his or her garage. So Ingram looked at this and said, we can cure this problem. Because now we can format books, which is the modern version of typesetting. We can format books. We can format them through computers. So where it would cost $30,000 or $40,000, $2,000 or $3,000 we can get a book formatted. Well done by a professional. Second of all, we can keep these books on our computer. So when somebody wants a copy of Skyla's book, we produce it. We don't produce it unless there's an audience that wants to pay for it. Make sense? So you don't have to carry an inventory. Print on demand. So with print on demand, you write the book, you hire the editors, and guess what? The editors that used to run publishing, that used to care about authors, they're now all accessible to us to hire. So we have maximum control. 10. Remember, we're working on a 0 to 10 system. Level of expertise. This is an area where you don't want to go cheap. You're not going to have to do a second mortgage on your house to get this done, okay? But don't try to save money in lieu of diminishing the professionalism by which you approach your book. You have the ability to access the top editors in the world who will work for you for a fraction of the cost that they used to work for conventional publishers. That's another 10. Opportunity to become a millionaire. Financial freedom, right? We live in a capitalistic society. We need money. That's just how it goes. All right, write this down. If your book sells for $20 and it's published through a print-on-demand alternative, such as Ingram, Ingram's right wing is Lightning Source. Amazon always, as well as Create Space. So if your book sells for $20, you can expect to make $15 per book sale. Why? Because you're cutting out the middle person. Because you will be becoming your own publisher. That just means you need to form an LLC. And everything else is outsourced. So at $15 a book, how many book sales do you need to be a millionaire? About 72,000. That's a little bit less, a lot less than 800,000, don't you think? So an opportunity to become a millionaire, I'd give this an 8. Ability to take off and with timely breaks in the market. How long does a conventional publisher need to get your book out in the market after it's been properly formatted and everything? 3 weeks if you go through Lightning Source. Rama, what can Create Space do it in? 2 days? 2 days. 2 days is compared to 2 years. So if you have a timely subject that you want to project in a book, you can get out there in 48, 72 hours. That's a 10. Percentage of market share, small, less than 5%. So I would rate this as about a 3. Ability to reach your reader directly, because you don't have to go through the 9 degrees of separation, because you can use direct promotion, that's a 10. Rama, next slide, please. Isn't he good at that? We've been working with him on this for years now. He's got the remote down like most men do. I think we, as men, have it innately somewhere in us. Even before remotes were available, we had fingers set for them. Next, form of publishing, ebooks. First thing you want to remember about ebooks is there's 5 different versions of them. You may want to write this down. Nook, Kindle, iPad, Sony Reader, PDF. So if you just publish an ebook, that's great. But there's 5 different types of ebook readers out there. So if you want to do saturation publishing with those, you have to make sure it's published in 5 different versions. Does that make sense? Because each one of these people want to create an exclusive audience for themselves, so they have a tendency to ask for a certain type of programming. And that's where the formatter comes in. Ebooks. Do you realize that the concept of ebooks have been around 35 to 40 years? Haven't become popular until approximately 7 years ago, when Sony came up with the Sony Book Reader. Up until that time, ebooks had a problem because they didn't look like books. Sony Book Reader said, we're going to come up with this little leather thing. You open it up, there's a little screen there. Book's been properly formatted. It looks like a book. People will buy it. And they were right. Why was the iPad created? Initially, what was the impulse in creating the iPad? Apple wanted to become the ultimate book reader. Because they knew hard versions of books were going to go bye-bye. Because the convenience. You know, how many of you saw 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago? They had a feature on Amazon. It was really cool. They now are saying within 5 years, they'll be able to get your orders to you within 30 minutes. You can order a book, and they got these little Tron things, the little helicopter things, that get your book, take it to your house, leave it on your front steps. 30 minutes. No extra expense. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so level of control, if you self-publish, is going to be a 10. You can still hire the best editors, best formatters in the world. This would be a 10 for level of expertise. Opportunity to become a millionaire. Hang with me on this. Very, very, very important concept. Got to take this down in your notes. As new authors, all of your book promotion that you will do should be devoted to directing people to your website. To your website to buy your book. Doesn't mean you don't want to use Amazon or whatever for a little while to build up your name, but eventually all the book promotion you independently do should be designed to direct people to your website. Because that will take advantage of the opportunity for you to utilize direct sales. Direct sales. You don't have to pay a middle person. You don't have to pay Amazon 35%, 40%, 50%. Direct sales. So, I go to Skyla's website, let's say, to buy her book. I want to buy her ebook for my iPad. It costs $20. I PayPal, whatever I got to do. I buy the book. I download it on my iPad. How much money has she made? $20. Do you understand? Do you understand? So, how many books at the rate of making $20 a book, and I realize the ebooks don't sell for $20, but just to stay within the same basic design we've been talking about, let's say they did. If your book sold for $20, how many books would you have to sell to make $1 million? 50,000. There was an extremely interesting article that came out in the Wall Street Journal last March. We were teaching a retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the retreats have gotten so efficient that the first day I have a lot of time on my hands. You know, I'm looking around for something to do. And I was so bored that I found the Wall Street Journal because they didn't have the USA Today, and the Wall Street Journal is not as pretty as USA Today. But I opened it up and I started going through it, and there was this entertainment section, and it focused on 5 independent authors who had self-published who were making an average of about $3 million a year each. And it diagnosed how they did it, and they were using maybe a fifth of what I'm talking to you about tonight. But ebooks was one of the ways that they were doing it. If you'd like, I'll have Rama send you a copy of the article. It's very inspiring because coming from a publication that says correct, but as conservative as the Wall Street Journal, for them to publish something about that is quite a pat on the back. Ability to take advantage of timely breaks in the market. How quick can you get an ebook out after it's been formatted? Immediately. Now. That's another 10. Percentage of market share. How many people are buying ebooks now as opposed to hardback books, hardcover books? Any guesses? There's several estimates out there. The one I like best is 67%. Huge market share. That's another 10. Ability to reach a reader directly. They come to your website, man. They buy your book. How much closer can you get? 10. Next screen, Rama. Audiobooks. This is the fourth form of book publishing. Fourth form of book publishing. Audiobooks used to be only utilized by people who were sight impaired or traveling salespeople. They were high priced. You know, sometimes you pay $50, $60 for an audiobook. And they didn't sell that many copies, but the profit margin was probably 50%, so they're probably making around $25 to $30 per book sale. Okay? Well, there's a whole new trend now. People are really moving into audiobooks. You know, there's two big reasons they're moving into audiobooks. First is because of technology. iTunes, spearheaded by Apple, is trying to conquer the book listening world as much as they are the book reading world. Technology, number one. Number two, because of the separation in our society, we're moving more into a closet or a cottage type of economy again. And we're seeking at the same time greater connection with others. One of the biggest trends now, which I don't recommend in following, but one of the biggest trends is to justify this, is that more people, more readers want to hear audiobooks than ever before, number one. Number two, most of those that want to hear audiobooks want to hear the books read by the author themselves, the authors themselves. They don't care if you fall asleep during your own reading of a book, you burp, you pass gas, they don't really care. They want to hear you accentuate the words because they want the closeness. iTunes, if you publish your book through iTunes, it costs $25, $30 up front, an insignificant amount. And they actually promote the book for you and take very, very little of the money. If your book sells, audiobook sells for $20, you can expect to walk away with about $19 per book sale. Level of control, 10. Level of expertise, 10, because you sat with the same editors. Opportunity to become a millionaire, excellent. You have to sell about 55,000 books to make $1 million at $20 each. Ability to take advantage of timely breaks the market. It's going to take you a little while to get your ebook together, but when I say a little while, I mean 3 to 4 weeks, so a month. So I give this an 8. Percentage of market share is still small, below 5%, but growing. Ability to reach your reader directly. God, they can hear your voice. That's a 10. Does that make sense? Next slide, Rama. All right, before we go any farther, and then we're going to take a really short, quick little break where Gwen's going to lead us through a few stretching exercises. She doesn't mind, because this is very cerebral stuff we're doing, but I want to make this point. Those who will take advantage of you. In our country, are you kidding me? Of course. There are 3 companies out of over 200 that I would strongly recommend you stay away from. One is called iUniverse. Next one is Author House. Third one is Ex Libris. They call themselves publishing houses. Now, what they do is they get your book from you after you've written it. They will do the formatting. They will do the editing. I'll be real honest with you. They do a really good job of the formatting and editing. They do an excellent job. And of course, you're charged for it. You should expect to pay for that. It's going to cost somewhere between $7,000 and $20,000 to get this work done. They do a really good job. The problem is that they pay you through royalties. Now, stay with me on this concept. I know we've been covering a lot of heavy stuff already tonight. But stay with me on this concept. I want to ask you a few questions. I want you to answer them. Who designs and created your product if you're an author? If you did, right? You wrote your book. Who's responsible for getting it edited, even if you pay them? You are, right? Who's responsible for getting it formatted? You are, because you pay them, am I correct? Who's responsible for getting the artistic design of the book created? You are. You pay them, but you're responsible. Got it? Who's responsible for promoting it? You are. So there's 5 major areas of creation and publication when it comes to books. And if you completely subsidize all 5 of those areas, doesn't it make sense that you should derive 100% of the income? Does that make sense? Anybody disagree with that? Anybody dumb enough to disagree with that? Okay. All right, so shouldn't you, if you've paid them for your services, let's say you pay them $12,000 to do all these beautiful things with your book, and they did a marvelous job. You paid them $12,000. When your book sells for $20, shouldn't you derive all of the income available? Well, that's not how it works with these companies. They pay you through royalties. Royalties. And what they will tell you is, our other conventional publishers only pay you sometimes 6 or 7% royalty rate. We will pay you a 25% royalty rate. Okay, no, well, wait a minute. Who invested all the time, energy, and heart and soul into this? Right? You? You've already paid them for your services. Does that make sense? You've already paid them. Why should they get more money? Right? Okay. So write this down. Write down $20. Write down your notes. $20. Now, if they are going to pay you a 25% royalty rate, that means they keep 75% of the income, right? So it's 75% of 20. So 20 minus 15 equals how much is left? 5. Now that's your cut, right? Well, there's a problem. You see, because you still have to pay the productions and shipping costs of the book, which usually equates to around $5. So how much do you end up with? Yes. Somebody started a vicious rumor many decades ago that writers were not only dysfunctional, but you can't make any money doing this. And they're right. Stupid writers can't make any money. All right? But you're looking at this system and you're giving away all your money, and who's going to be out there selling this book? You are. And what are they going to be doing? They're going to be making 75% free and clear because you're paying for the expenses too. So we had one author by his name, Sarah Enoch, came into one of our classes one time and eventually came through our retreats and worked with a publishing company. She published through iUniverse. And I didn't know Sarah. I was lecturing down in Paradise Valley one time, and she started crying during my lecture. I didn't even know her. I thought, oh my God, maybe I said something insulting or whatever. So at break, I called her. I said, I'm sorry, I noticed that you were weeping during my lecture. I was wondering if I said something inappropriate. Maybe we dated, I don't know. And she said, no, I'm crying because I got my first royalty check today. I said, oh, tears of joy. She goes, the royalty check was for $13. I said, well, that's a good start. It's first book. Because my husband and I invested $107,000 in publishing and promoting our book through iUniverse. And I just made $13. In the next 2 years, she didn't make more than $50. But yet, her book was selling, she just wasn't making any money. Do you understand? I get calls, 20, 30 calls a year in our office from people who have been associated with Author House. Basically all say the same thing. They love my editor, the book looks great, they did a great job, and it's selling. But I made $73 in 2 years because I'm only making less than 7 cents a book because of that system, that scenario I talked to you about. So if anyone, a word to the wise is sufficient, correct? If anyone tries to get you in a deal where you're responsible for everything, but then you are only going to derive money through royalties, avoid that situation at all costs. Because you're entering into a limited partnership, and you're the limited partner. You're limited financially, okay? And I know you're going to have some questions. We'll take care of those at the end of the evening. Gwen, would you mind coming up for a minute? I want to get you out of your seats for a little bit because we've got a little bit yet more to cover. I want you to move a little bit. This is one of Gwen's major expertises. Stand up.
Like that? Okay. I'm not usually in the habit of stretching in high heels, so hopefully, Tom, you can stay here in case I fall over. Okay. All right, let's just get some movement into our ankles, taking your foot, placing your toes on the floor, and just rotating in circles, switching feet, and pressing the balls of the feet into the ground, alternating. Good. And feel free if you want to close your eyes so you can really tune into your own body, what it needs, shaking the legs out a little bit. Shake them out to the sides. Just getting the blood flowing here. Noticing your body. So we've been in our heads a lot tonight. Let's go ahead and drop into the body. And then feet a little bit wider than hip width apart, and just let yourself roll your hips around. I definitely recommend closing your eyes here so you can tune into your own body and feel what your body needs right now. Maybe it's slow, maybe it's fast, maybe they're small circles, maybe they're big circles, and switching directions. And remembering to breathe. Good. And then placing your feet back under your hips and just letting your body sway from side to side. Let your arms be loose. Let your hands guide you, guide the movement. And now raising your arms up to your shoulders, breathe in. Exhale as you bring the arms down. Again. Bring some voice into it. Just let your voice carry some of the energy out. Good. And roll your shoulders back. As you inhale, bringing them up to your ears and rolling them back. Really enjoying the movement. And a couple more times before you switch directions. Again, as you inhale, pulling them up to your ears, rolling them around. Let yourself feel the pleasure of waking your body up, of the movement and of the breath. And bringing the shoulders down, and then we're going to shrug them up and down as fast as you can. And squeeze them up to your ears. A little bit higher, drop them. Again, squeeze them up high, drop them. And then inhale as you turn the head to the left, pushing slightly against the resistance. Exhale as you move to the right. Inhaling as you turn the head over to the left and going at your own pace. And a couple more times. And bringing the head to center, inhaling as you tip the head gently to the back, dropping the chin to the chest, squeezing it to the chest. Again, tipping the head back. Squeeze it down to the chest as you exhale. And a couple more times. And bringing the head up to center. And we're going to bring our arms, stretching them out to the side, bring them all the way up high, and feel your legs and your hips rooting into the ground as you stretch your arms up towards the ceiling. Inhale as you pull up a little bit higher. Exhale as you tip just slightly over to the left. And inhaling, reach up to the ceiling. Exhale slightly over to the right. And inhale, up to the ceiling, keeping your legs and hips rooted into the ground. Exhale over the left. And one more time. Inhaling all the way up to the ceiling, exhaling over to the right. One more time, reaching up. Now turn the backs of your hands together. Pull away from your shoulders as you reach the fingertips out to the side, slowly bringing your arms down. Pulling them down, pull away from your shoulders, and shake the hands out. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. You can have your seats again. Physicality is an extremely important part of writing. Gwen has been part of our retreats now since August. I've known Gwen for about 5 years. We're very fortunate to have her. Whenever we have a retreat, Gwen is a constant influence. She's a breathwork management movement specialist, a life coach, and she gets our people up several times a day, do things like this, because you want to keep the energy flowing, because if you don't, everything gets stagnant. And what we're covering tonight is extremely valuable, so it's important that you stay awake. Gwen also does some work with a colleague of hers by the name of Deborah Diane. We approach writing and publication from an inside-out basis. We feel that if you are coming from your heart and you're open from your heart, you'll see that you're going to get the results on the outside that you need. And so we have all of our writers that come to us are in one way or another self-sabotaging in one way or another. And Gwen and her friend Deborah Diane go in and remove those emotional blockages. Gwen moves the stuff out, and we've seen amazing results. We had one student that came to a retreat here in Sedona in August. Her name was MJ Della Pena. MJ's published a few books through us, and it's done moderately well. But she had a barrier of self-appreciation and deservability. She didn't feel she deserved to succeed at what she loved doing. She was very successful at a lot of things she hated doing, but she loved writing and didn't feel she deserved it. And I had a long talk with MJ, and I've known MJ for years, and I said, at some point you're going to have to go in there and just dislodge all that stuff and get it out of there. And she goes, I know. I said, why not this weekend? She goes, okay. So she stayed over next day, worked with Deborah Diane and Gwen, and did some amazing clearing. Of course, a lot of not only were the ladies really good at what they did, but MJ was ready. That was very important. And MJ went home that week, got a call from Robert Wagner. Remember Robert Wagner? He wanted to take a few of her books to film. He's now taking 2 of them to film. She's working with the largest screen agent in the business to get a sitcom done about this cop character she had. I mean, it happened within 3 days to work with Gwen and Deborah Diane. We've had circumstances like that at all the times. So if at any time you're interested in getting in contact with Deborah Diane and Gwen to work with them, you can contact Gwen. What's your number? 451-5020? 451-5020. 451-5020, and she's local. Now, I got to tell you, it's so important as her work become to our authors that she is a constant at the retreats. Going into this fall, I was looking at the retreats, and Ram and I were looking at them thinking, was there any way we could improve them? It's kind of odd when you've gotten 100% success rate of people completing books at your retreats the last few years that you want to improve them. But where we did see a downfall was that people were going home with extremely passionate, well-written books, and they were having a difficult time revising them because they weren't in a controlled environment. So our goal was, we're not going to change the length of the retreats. We like them 3 days. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to get to the point where most people have their books revised or partially revised before they go home so they don't fall back into their old habits. My feeling was we needed to go even deeper, because the deeper you go, the faster you go. So we brought in Gwen. Gwen and I talked for 6 months consistently before we brought her into a retreat. Ram and I and her met extensively for days on end, it seemed like. Of course, anytime we spend time with Ram, it seems like days on end. So we talked elaborately, and I was hoping that I would see at least some improvement in our writing speed. Even though it was good, we wanted to go better. The first retreat Gwen worked with was at the end of August here in Sedona, and 80% of the people at that retreat not only wrote their book, but revised it. 100% of the people completed the book. 80% of those people that completed their books actually had their book revised before they went home. So we didn't have to worry about them going home and trying to struggle with the old habits that they'd been having a difficult time getting over. So we see results like that all the time, and Gwen's been instrumental in doing that and bringing that through. Right now we have a best-selling program going into 2014. We will not work with an author on our best-selling program until they've worked with Gwen and Deborah Diane, because quite frankly, we can give them all the technical assistance and all the enthusiasm necessary, but if they got that subconscious stuff that's holding them back, they're not going to get the results they deserve. So the first thing we do with an author, we get them branded. We have a branding specialist that helps them pull out the soul meaning of their books and their purposes. Once they have that, they can really resonate with where they're going, and then we remove the stuff, and then we lay on all the technical things that are necessary. But right now, going in 2014, our best-selling program, you have to work with them because we believe their system's that effective. So again, if you want to get in touch with Gwen, 451-5020, and I'd highly recommend it. We're going to get to the point where she not only works our retreats, but she'll work every aspect of what we do because she's so effective in clearing stuff through. Last story on this. I don't recommend anything I haven't tried extensively myself. So I said to Gwen, well, hook me up with this Deborah Diane, let me try her stuff. And I'm a pretty open guy, I got 2 speeds. I got overdrive and I got reverse. There's nothing in between. So I'm going to meet with Deborah Diane. She's going to remove my stuff. I'm going to be there, I'm not going to waste a half an hour, 45 minutes. If I'm not going to be there, I'm going to be there, right? So again, she's talking, I got this. Yeah, go ahead and remove it. Got that? Yeah, go ahead and remove that. Got this big thing? Go ahead and remove it. Yeah, go ahead and remove that too. Remove everything. Moves all this stuff. I'm feeling pretty good after the session, Didn't seem like I stressed about it. Next day, man, I was down. I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to die or I want to die. I'm so sad. I feel like crying all the time. I was really depressed, which is totally unlike me. And I didn't know what to do, I'd never felt this way before. And then I realized that woman before yesterday, she cleared some stuff. It didn't leave. So I called Gwen. She came over and she did some work with me, and I felt better in 10 minutes. But I felt terrible. But it was because Deborah had loosened so much stuff in me that I just, as a human being, just couldn't clear it quick enough. And when Gwen did her mojo with me, it cleared it right away. So we don't do one without the other. But it becomes essential now. So let's get back to publishing. And then, by the way, we will have plenty of time to answer any of your questions. So I'm sure you should have some. And please take advantage of that opportunity, too. We also have a publishing program, which I'll talk to you about. In this class, I'm here to teach you everything you need to know. If you end up getting accepted in our publishing program, that's great. But I'm not here as a come-on for that. We're here to show everything we need to know about publishing. This is my way of tithing and giving back. I started tithing about 20-some years ago. I used to give money to charities and stuff. I never knew where it went. And I wasn't comfortable with that, so I thought, I'm going to tithe within the environment that I can control. And so I tithe in my time and my actions, and I really sincerely appreciate you being here tonight. So thank you for that. All right, Rama, give us the next screen. You'll notice on your notes, there's a lot more websites than we had listed here. Rama, as talented as he is, just didn't have the ability to get all those other different websites listed in regards to the iUniverses and Author's House of the world. You may want to go on there and just read, and we'll verify my opinion. How many of you are big fans of Louise Hay? How many of you know about her publishing house? Balboa Press. Who's Balboa Press a front for? Hay House is a front for Random House. Authors Associates or something like that. So even someone as genuine as Louise Hay, her publishing isn't designed to return large amounts of money and control and expertise to you. Do you understand? So watch out. If you pay all the expenses and they pay you royalties, something is wrong. Okay. The keys to taking advantage of today's book publishing option. We've gone over all these. I want to make sure we go over these extensively so you understand in summation what we've covered. You got to write with a heart. I mean, the options are out there to really get a book out there quick and fast to make it look beautiful. But quite frankly, if it sucks because it's too left brain, no one's going to want to read it. How many of you have had teachers in school, whether it be college or high school or junior high, where the person was brilliant, but they were so locked down left brain, they were so frustrating because you thought, God, this guy's got so much information, and none of it's being conveyed because it's all facts and figures, no caring. But yet, how many of you have had teachers that really cared when they walked in the classroom? They wanted to be there, right? They're the ones that most positively affect you. It's the same thing with writing. Got to write with the heart, which means write fast. Write fast. If you're not, and this is an all or nothing league. If you're in that author within connected state, you're going to write a good book. If you're not, you're going to write a bad one. Longer it takes you to write a book, the more mistakes there are because the more cerebral intervention there is. Put this down in your notes. 98% of the mistakes you could make as an author, 98% of the mistakes you could make as an author are directly attributed to inappropriate left brain intervention. So, if there's no left brain intervention, how many mistakes are you going to make? Not very many. Can anybody write a book? Can anybody? Yes. Can anybody write a good book? Yes. 81% of Americans, according to the New York Times, believe that they have a book stuck inside them that they have to get out. I believe the New York Times is only off by 19%. You can ask Gwen about this experience. She came to her first retreat in August. I didn't know she was nervous. She's always so composed. Found out later she was nervous. And she came into the retreat. She goes, what do you want me to do? I said, sit down and write a book. She goes, I didn't know how to write a book. I said, you're going to expect to work with my people without knowing what they feel like? Sit down and write a book. She was the fastest writer we had in the retreat, finished the book in a day and a half. She came in with no preconceived notions about writing a book and wrote one in a day and a half. So what I'm saying is if Gwen can do it, you can do it too. But the key was writing fast. Now, was she powered by heart? Initially, I think she was powered by fear. Nervousness, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Get the pedal to the metal, and then you'll enjoy the ride as it goes on. But eventually she got so into it, during the retreats, we're very efficient. My people are writing like crazy. There isn't much for me to do. So if there isn't a football or basketball game on, or if the History Channel does anything interesting, I come around, I talk to the authors. And what I want to do is I want to say something to them. I want to see them look up at me like, huh? Yeah, okay, sure. I agree with you. It's a wonderful point. Thank you for your help. They get that deer in the headlights look. I was looking at Gwen, man. I thought she was looking out through the back of my head. You just get in that zone, right? Got to revise fast, too. Yeah. See, we think that revision has to be left-brained. It's a right-brain drill where the right brain utilizes the left brain to work for it. Does that make sense? So we make 5 sweeps through your material. And you can do it in about a day and a half, 2 days. But we move through every one real fast. If you think, I'm going to take the next 4 months and review my book, by the time you'll get done with it, it'll be dead. Back when I started teaching, which was a long time ago, I started teaching because I made this promise to God. I was really desperate. Came home from my job one night. It was about midnight. I was just exposed to the inner workings of racism in baseball and just broke my back emotionally. I just couldn't deal with it anymore, which helped me a lot because I looked and said, well, this verifies this is not the right place for me. This verifies I got to go someplace else, and there's only one place I want to go, and so I want to be a writer. But I've been trying up to that point, I've been applying everything I knew, and nothing was working. So out of desperation, about 12:30 at night, I just got down on my knees and said, God, I know you want me to do this. I know you want me to do it, but I don't know how to do it, and I've searched everywhere down here, and I can't find the answers. So maybe I wasn't listening until now, but I'm listening now. So show me. And out of desperation, when out of desperation, we always make promises. We always think it's a trade. Stop the bed from spinning. I'll never drink again. That one, Been there a few thousand times. So I said, if you show me how to do this, I promise I'll show other people how to do it. I said out of desperation. I didn't think I'd get the answer. 2 days later, I woke up, got the answer. I'd landed the largest literary agent in the world as my representative by the end of the week. I said, oh, shoot. I made that promise. So I started teaching. And I started teaching because I made a promise. I started teaching because I didn't realize how many new authors there were out there. I mean, my first book was published at the age of 25, 26. It was on a bestseller list within the second week of publication. And I had a listed phone number at the time. I haven't had one since. But I had one. I would literally, and this is not an exaggeration, I would get 50 phone calls a week from people calling saying, hey, I saw that you published a book and you did really well with it. And you're young and you're a punk probably. So if you can do it, I'm sure I can do it. I said, can you tell me how you did it? So I started teaching. But I was really surprised by what I found. I've never met anybody in my life that I got to know who didn't admit to me that they wanted to write a book. I know that's why you're here. And my purpose is to tell you that if you follow your purpose, you're going to have the life you want. If you don't, you won't. I think this is a big part of your purpose. So you got to look and say, well, is it enough to birth a baby? Or is it, you got to prepare that baby for life and help it find its way. That's what publishing is. This is wonderful because we can go from being nobody to being somebody immediately. But again, it's all revising fast, and writing with the heart. Those are the most important part of publication. Because if the heart's not there, we've all had relationships, haven't we? I was married to an accountant once. It didn't go that well. I meet with my accountant twice a year. Twice. That's it. You ever see an accountant dance? You don't want to see it. So, you know what I'm saying to you? Accountant can go look real good, but when he gets on the dance floor, he don't move that good. You know what I'm saying? It's all heart and soul at that point. These are the most important aspects of publishing. After you, the author, have done all you can do, turn your book over to a team of professionals. You're responsible, and this is what it comes down to. This is your responsibility. Anything outside of this, you're not qualified to do. You are responsible for showing up, sitting down, shutting up, and writing. Then you're responsible for taking that same ambiance and transferring it over to the revision of your book. Once the book is revised, you need to turn it over to a professional because you're not qualified to go beyond that point forward. That's what polishes it. That extra insight, that extra turn of the page, that takes that book from being a good one to a great one. Those people are out there for any of us to get in contact with. Gain control. No one's going to care about your book as much as you do. I mean, that's, out of all the things I learned from book publishing, conventional book publishing during the heyday, biggest thing was I was so respected that my opinion outweighed anybody else's at the publishing house, the literary agency I was working with, because they respected me as an author, because they knew I was the only one that knew what that book was all about. That ability's been returned to us. Self-publish. Don't let this scare you. In Arizona, it costs $65 to start an LLC. That just means you are retaining control. It is yours. If you don't self-publish, if you don't retain the rights, you're giving away money to people that don't care as much as you do and giving away control to people who don't care as much as you do. And as a result, you're giving away your baby to somebody that's going to let it sit out in the sun, Arizona sun, and it's not going to be pretty. You understand what I'm saying? They just don't care. No one's going to care about it as much as you do. Timing's very important. Timing. When are you going to release your book? Books aren't born just because they want to get out of you. How many of you feel you've been wanting to write for a long period of time? All right. How many of you may have regrets or feel guilty about the fact that you've waited? How many of you think of yourself as procrastinators as a result? You're just smart. Just because you had a premonition 40 years ago that you were going to be a writer doesn't mean you had to birth that stage of your life 40 years ago. Do you understand? You're here tonight because it's your time. I'm here tonight because it's your time too. You're getting the answers now because now's the time to do it. 2 years ago wasn't the time. 5 years ago wasn't the time. Now's the time. Timing. Books start avalanches. They don't become part of them. Do you understand? A well-released book starts an avalanche of thought, of feeling, of change. Just because your book comes out today and doesn't sell well for 6 months, doesn't mean that it's not working underground to make big things happen. You know, who was it? Paul? Who was influenced by one man on the road to Damascus, right? One guy shows up out of nowhere, tells Paul some stuff, changes Paul's life, he starts Christianity. Whatever. Whether that was good or bad, who knows? But, you know, it was a big thing. Started an avalanche, right? Who's to say your book isn't? Another thing that writing has taught, my work with authors has taught me, because I look for universal principles in everything. If I nail the universal principles, I can nail the teaching. I can nail the expression. Another thing that I found is that it's so easy for people to write books in my retreats because there's a book stuck inside them already, but that book's already written. Literally, when they get into that writer's zone, they're like, wow, this is a pretty damn good book. I don't know where the hell I'm going, don't know what I'm doing, but I'm like reading it. So the book is already written. There's no creativity involved. It's more release. So the book will find its timing. I'm just dumb enough to know that I don't know a lot. I know a lot about a few things. There's a lot of things I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about divine timing, but I know that I can tap into it and get the answers when I need it. So I look and I listen and I watch. When I feel I have a need to do something, I do it. Do you understand? A book will show you. A book will lead the way for you through your revision, who you should work with. It's almost like an outside entity. Diversify. Move in 3 directions at once. Pay close attention. 3. Remember there's 4 types of publishing? And that says move in 3 directions at once. Is that a typo? No. 3 directions at once. My strong suggestion, this is the plan we talked about. Take some notes here. I know you're all getting a little weary because of the amount of information we've covered, and it is a Tuesday night in Sedona. It's almost 8 o'clock, so 3/4 of our community is already asleep. 15% of the remainder of the community is dead, and the other 10%'s here. Okay, so 3 directions. I know this is a big stretch, just like an all-nighter in Sedona, isn't it? Yeah, even the cops go home at 7. That's a whole lot of people. We got a lot of cops in this town. Okay, so 3 directions at once. Here's the plan. You ready? You publish your book as an POD book, as an e-book, and as an audiobook all at once. Notice we're leaving out conventional publishers. For now. Publish them simultaneously in those 3 versions. Promotion's a whole other class, which I hope to teach, but we put it into place, some of the promotional things we talked about, or you can look at our best-selling program. We show you how to do that. Or literally through our best-selling program, we can guarantee you that your book will be a bestseller within 4 months after publication. So anyway, what your goal is to get one of those hooks that are in the pond, get a fish to bite on it. So let's say, Sam, you got an audio book out there, and your audiobook goes viral on you, man. And this is not unusual. So in Sam's case, she sells 4,000 copies of an audiobook first week. What's going to happen to the ebook sales and the POD sales? Right. You got it? Staying with me on this? Okay. Now, her book is going to be released at the right time because she's allowing it to lead the way. You know, this book, when you write your book, this fast method, you'll get more divine guidance you never thought was possible. Hell, that's why I write. I'm not that bright. I'm pretty smart when I write. Otherwise, you know, not so much so. So she releases it. She sells 4,000 books her first week. Now, stay with me on this. For every person that reads her book and likes it, they directly affect 5 people to read the book within 2 weeks. So how many does she sell book week 2? 20, 10, in each one of the categories. Now, stay with me now still. The New York Times needs sales of how many per week to give you strong consideration about being on their list? So what's going to happen to her? What's going to happen to Sam? Do you see? All right. It's about 2,000 to 3,000 a week. So now she's up to selling 10,000, 12,000 a week per version of it. You got it? Now what's going to happen? What are the conventional publishers going to do? Conventional book publishers are trend. Okay. So Sam's written a truly revolutionary book, but she's got a what going? A trend, correct? So now they're going to call who? Because they're following, they've monitored book sales like some people watch the stock market. So who are they going to call? All right. What are they going to say? We want to buy your book because you've established a, what type of deal they're going to offer her? There's 2 types of deal, bottom 90% or top 10? Top 10. Right. So they're going to give her enough, they want to give her enough money that she would go into the top 10, which means they have to get a good selling book out of the top 10 because they've invested so much money. Or one of these geese is going to lose their job if they don't. Okay? You understand? So what's that do for Sam, though? Here's the most important word to remember in publishing, in life. No. They're going to come to her and say, "Oh, I want to buy the rights to your book." No. "Oh, we were thinking of offering you a special deal." No. If you say no 7 times, this is a law that I have in business. You say no 7 times, the yes that you want comes around. So instead of giving Sam a royalty rate of 6 or 7%, they're going to give her somewhere between 35 and 40%. So instead of making, $1.25 on a book, now she's making $7 to $8 on a book. The publisher's making $2 now. Tides have kind of turned, haven't they? They're going to bust their butt to get her book out there to sell because she's in the top 10. They've now invested 7 figures in trying to acquire the rights. Do you understand? That's saturation publishing. Now, some of you are probably saying, why even go after a conventional publisher? Because they still control a certain part of the market. They control a certain part of the market. And we want to control, as authors, we want access to 100% of the market. I don't know about you folks, but I can live with any result if I've done 100% of the things that need to be done. I can live with failure. Because I haven't failed, because I did everything that was possible. That's saturation publishing. Move in 3 directions. To build market value through saturation publishing and going viral. If a book is released at the right time and it's written with heart, it's going to sell. What's the best book on book promotion ever written? I'll give you the name of the author. Malcolm Gladwell. I think it's Gladwell. You know the name of the book? No. Tipping Point. Tipping Point. You ever hear that book? Nod your heads, make yourself look intelligent. There you go. Listen, there's not very many good books out there on this topic. The one book, if you have to read just one book, read it over and over again. It's called Tipping Point. It talks to you about how little products become huge products because the right people are involved. It's the exact same thing with the book. Tipping Point. A tremendous book. It tells you everything you need to know about how this all works. Rama, next slide, please. Malcolm Gladwell, I believe it is. We have, about 5 years ago, I don't know how many of you read your mail, but some days I swear in Sedona, the mailman forgets to come around to my house. Do you any of that ever have that happen? I know they don't come around. I know they miss some days. But so, beside that point, I go through my mail about once a month because there's really nothing in there. I have auto pay on everything, and the IRS gives you a few weeks to respond if they get threatening. So, so this one month I'm going through my mail. I just stack it on a kitchen counter. I bring a trash can over, just flip things into the trash can. 2 trash cans, one for recycling and one for shredding. And I came across this letter, an actual letter. It was a little frightening, though, because it looked like a letter from a serial killer. You know how they kind of do things cut things out of a magazine? Well, it wasn't quite that, but the writing was all over the place. And so, being the daredevil I am, I opened it anyway. And the letter that I opened up to looked like something from a scene from A Beautiful Mind. It's completely all over the place. And it was actually from one of my authors, which psychotic kind of fits in there. His name was Ryan Hightower, and he came through a retreat that I had a number of years ago. And anyway, he achieved great success with his book. And he's a real intuitive guy, and he wrote to me and basically what this frightening piece of literature looked like. What it said was, Tom, you're getting people to write their books in a few days. You can get their books published in a few months. You just think you should look into it. So I took this message from Ryan as the voice of God, which is probably errant to my end, but nonetheless it worked out. I looked at it. I started looking into technology. I was kind of bored at the time, so I started looking at different technology. I could see that everything you needed to publish a really good book was there. The problem was it was scattered like pickup sticks across the globe. No one had consolidated these different fragments into teams. So I felt that was my calling to establish a whole new brand of publishing. So over the course of about 9 months, I interviewed 350 editors, formatters, artists, all kinds of people. And eventually I formed it down into a few teams. And the problem I was running into was we had the competency there to self-publish a book, as well as a conventional publisher used to do them, but do them quicker and a much higher profit margin. The problem was they were too expensive. The average price that I was getting back from these formatting teams and editorial teams was $27,000 to publish a book, which in comparison to other options that were out there was actually pretty good. But I'm a blue-collar guy, so they're my people, They got to be able to afford it, otherwise I don't feel like I'm doing my job. So I wanted to get this publishing thing down to the price of a Yugo. Remember the Yugos, the disposable cars? Any of you old enough to remember disposable clothes? Yeah, laughing, that show too. So I went back to these guys and these 2 different teams I had at the time. I said, I know you can do what I want you to do, but you got to charge a lot less. So how about if I guarantee I bring in like 50 or 60 authors a year? What type of price will you give me? So they broke the price down by about 60%. So we're getting close, but we're still only about half the way there. How about if you never have to talk to one of my authors ever again? You may find that funny, but I've been in the business long enough. I know when they budget hours. And they think, I'm going to budget 40 hours to get this book done, but this is a brand new author, so 40 hours of psychological counseling administered by me. Seriously, that's how they look at it, because they got to teach you the business. So I said, you never have to talk to any of my authors at any time. You just talk to Rama. Eventually became Rama. Initially was me. So okay, they dropped another 20%, so I'm 80% off where they started. I said, I still need to get it down under $6,000. So I went back and I said, okay, one more offer. I need you to come down a little further. I'm not going to insult you. I'm going to offer you something. How about if you never have to bill me? You never have to bill me. I sign an author up. I give you money. You're paid in advance. There's no 90 days, 120 days out. Paid in advance. So finally they came down low enough that we can offer a program that enables you to get the highest level of publication, editing, formatting done, and in a really short period of time for under $6,000. So you have to sell about 400 books to make your money back the way it comes out to be. But we don't take any of your money. We're paid for our services up front. We're also educators. It's very important. I'm an educator. So I'm a little anal about that. So I studied Apple's system. I went all Mac about 3.5 years ago. And when I did that, I don't know how many of you walked into one of the Apple stores like down in Scottsdale, some of these, orgasmic. The energy is just wonderful. No one's trying to sell you anything. They're just trying to help you. They're not trying to move you into this computer or that. They'll tell you which one's bad for you. And, so one thing I noticed was when I bought my first series of Macs, that they sought to educate you. And it was this group education, part of what you paid for. And so we do the same thing. We educate our authors. We educate them because they may be very successful in certain areas of your life, but this is a big jump, and it's a big jump emotionally. You think it's a big jump emotionally writing a book? It's a bigger jump publishing it. It's not, I gotta tell you, technically, it's easy. Emotionally, it's hard. Because publication equals exposure, means saying to the world, here I am, I think I have something to say. And so that's where Rama deals with you. He's the calmest guy I've ever met. Rama, we couldn't do what we do without Rama. He's a jack of all trades, and he has no ego. So I can say to Rama, see this guy over the corner there? If we're at a retreat, go stand behind him for 10 minutes. Okay. He doesn't ask why. He doesn't wonder if I'm kidding. He just does it. Because he carries this really soft energy with him. So if somebody's having a little bit difficult time, he just stands there, and I remove him, the guy's okay. So he's the perfect person. So I spent about a year training Rama. And I'm at the point where I ask him questions now as opposed to he asking me questions. And he spends about 8 to 10 hours a day talking to our authors, and he loves it. They're his kids. So we have created a publication system that takes care of everything from websites to search engine optimization to editing to publishing to distribution, creating five versions of your ebooks, one version of your hard copy book. We have it uploaded. We take care of all the contractual work. And you keep 100% of the money. We don't want it. The reason we were able to do that, if you want to give it to us, that's okay, but I don't necessarily look for it. I got the price down so low that we were able to make our profit between what you pay us, and what we pay out. That's where we make our profit. But that means we don't need to tap into your resources or tap into your revenue. So that's called the Publishing Now program. We're constantly growing and adding new things to it. So next year's price is going to go up, but it's still going to be under the $6,000 barrier by $5. So, but we're always, if there's new technology and things that we can do, we always include that. We're a little slow to add technology, even though it seems quick. We're slow because I have to try it first. And Rama will attest to this. I'm really busy, and I'm really devoted dad, so I don't have a lot of time, so sometimes it takes me 6 to 8 months to get to something I could have got to in 10 minutes if I had more time. So I have to test it. Every time we have one of these talks, these lectures, these classes, whether it's here or Las Vegas or Phoenix or Atlanta or wherever I go, we always assume that the people that show up live, especially, are probably the most devoted people. The people that show up remotely are almost as devoted. And we offer special deals for anybody that comes in. So if any of you are interested in potentially going in the Publishing Now program, we'll be willing to take off $800 for the 2014 price for the first 6 people that show their interest. Okay. And Rama, do you go to the next slide? I'm just going to go over this quickly. The Publishing Now program, I'm just going to show you what it includes, and Rama's going to have documentation on this. You receive 100% of your profit, 100% of your ownership. Desperation leads us to some great accomplishments, also leads us to some stupid decisions. So many authors have written great books and not made money because they gave away the ownership of their books. Even a conventional publisher won't ask you to own your book. But you want to make sure in any book deal you get into that you own the copyright. You understand? You own the copyright. There's no other name on that because that's your deed and title. There's no markup over printing book guarantee, which means when your book is published, let's say for $5, no one's making $2 off that. Takes care of all this. This is all the things that are covered by the Publishing Now program in regards to your legal rights. Here's the review process. This is very important. I think this is the most important part of our program. The first person to review your book is me. Okay? Part of it's because I'm interested. Part of it's because I'm very practical. I love to see people's books who come to me out of retreats because we just spent a very intimate 3 days together. And part of it's practical because I can't send a underdeveloped book to one of our editors because they're not getting paid to develop a book. They're getting paid to take a good book and make it better. If I send in a crappy book, they're going to call me back and say, I'm going to need another $2,000 on this thing. And then I have to carry the news, or Ram in this case, I have to carry the news back to the author. We need another $2,000 because your book really sucks. So I read the book initially. Now, I may have designed and structured this business, and I'm a good architect, but it bores me to death running it, into these parts of it. So that's what Rama does. He takes care of all the nuts and bolts. While I do all the creative work, I like working with the authors. So if there's something wrong with the book, I work with you to develop it to where it needs to be. And so few of our authors that come through our retreats need the extra work, there's no extra cost in that. Professional style evaluation of your book. Man, it's so hard to find a good style editor. There's a lot of people that are very knowledgeable. The problem is a lot of those people that are knowledgeable are poor communicators. That's why they're editors and not writers. So we had to find style editors that were good communicators that could actually say, there's a room for improvement, here's what it is, and not saying in a condescending manner. So your book will be style edited, copy edited. Consult with me at just about any time you want. Next slide, Rama. We also have, Rama is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, 514-1616. Seriously, he loves. My problem was that I couldn't start an expanded business until I found someone who cared as much as I did, because I really care for my people because I know what it's like to be on your end. And Rama, we found that. I mean, the guy cares extremely much. He cares so much that he bothers me with his comments. You've had a manuscript for 2 days, you haven't read it yet. When's it going to be done? All right. He's willing to risk my anger by making sure he represents our clients well. So Rama's always there. Unlimited access to Publish Now support seminars. We have 3 seminars a week, 3 webinars a week you can tune into at any time to get the support you need and ask any questions you want. Rama on Writing. We started a webinar called Rama on Writing on Saturday mornings. Once I saw that Rama had the compassion to do this job, I thought, well, we got to get you some exposure, man. So I came up with this thing. We do a little talk show on Saturday mornings called Rama on Writing. He's gotten very good at it. He's got quite the following now. We have a promotional library of probably 35 to 40 webinars that covers everything you need to know about promotion. Production, multiple corrections of proofs of the interior book. You don't. That may not seem valuable to you, but your first time through a book, you can be a little schizophrenic. Okay? You may say, it looks great, and then 2 minutes later you think, oh my God, I shouldn't have sent it back to Ram. I want pink instead of orange. So now normally what will happen is every time there's another proof, there's another $500. Our guys do up to 7 proofs. Custom formatting for your books, we do all the versions of the ebooks. This becomes very important. Those are uploaded too. You think you're good with the computers, but when you find that there's a different type of programming you have to do for every upload on each one of these books, it becomes quite daunting. So it covers an upload fee. Photo and image insertion. Other publishers will charge you more for inserting images. We don't. Choice of custom font for your book, creation of custom spine for your book, use of copyright for blah, 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 blah. Multiple correction cycle proofs for your book. All these things are included. Is there another screen on this, Rama? All these things are included in the program. What I like about when I work with Apple is that they don't nickel and dime me. I pay a fee. I know I'm paying an extra $300 or $400 above what their costs are or what their profit is, but I know that they're giving me exactly what I need, and we designed that in this way too. Here's the distribution. Your book will be on all the major sales sites. Promotion, website development. We have the next coming of Christ as our website development person. You know, most of us aren't that familiar with website development, and what we do know, we forget when we get stressed out, and when we publish, we get stressed out. Greg, who's from my home state of Pennsylvania, works on developing websites for all our authors, author-based websites. And all I ever hear is, man, is he a nice guy? I think he is a nice guy. I think he's just bored, but he does all these things. He sets up a premium website that has all of these things associated with it. That's all included. This came as a result of finding the right people and my ability to negotiate, to go and say, I can guarantee you what you want if you can guarantee me what I need. Rama? Search engine optimization. I don't know if you've looked into that. There's a really good source in town that'll do it for you. About $2,200. I've got Greg doing the same thing for a fraction of the price. This is all included as well, too. And one of the things we do, we give every author that we accept into our system. Now, understand, though, I'm going to qualify this. We only have room to take on the authors that have the desire to really make it. We're a small organization. We're going to stay small. If we grow, we can only grow with the quality of individuals that we add onto our roster like Rama. And what we offer is when we enroll an author into our system, they're given the option of being a featured author of the week choice. We feature an author every week on our website, and we get, I don't know, 85,000 hits a month on my website. So it's pretty good coverage. Next. And then, of course, we've got, just to make it simple for you, we've got a best-selling author program. We have 2 levels. One gives you everything you need to know to set up the foundation for your business, and level 2 is the Amazon bestseller list option. Rama, I'll quickly go through this. Step 1 of level 1 is where you do an author intake. We do a complete evaluation of where you are, what you know, what you need to do. Hit it? Your author branding. We work at an inside-out approach again, okay? My friend MJ, you have to wait sometimes. You know, there's that old saying, the student should always seek the teacher. I had to wait. I knew what MJ had some blockages. I had to wait till she finally got to the point where she said, I don't know what's stopping me, but I think I am. I said, yes. And I was able to recommend Deborah Diane and Gwen Services. We get people branded immediately. We've got this one woman, her name's Deb McTieran, one of our authors, who can tap into your soul and tell you exactly what it's saying in regards to books within about a half an hour. It's amazing. I couldn't believe I saw it myself. And you'll spend time with her. She'll be able to give you a title that represents what is happening in your soul. And every one of our authors she's worked with says, oh my God, that's right. I didn't know that until you told me. You know, you ever had one of those feelings where somebody told you something, you said, yeah, that's correct, but I didn't know it until you said it to me. So that's Deb. Next one. This is the Gwen and Deborah Diane package where you go in and remove all the stuff. Social media training. We don't expect you to do this yourself. We bring in experts that hold your hand and say, let's turn on the computer. This is the screen. This is the keyboard. Let me take your fingers and put them on the keys and direct them to where they need to go. So we actually set you up to have 5 distinctly different pages done for the 5 different areas of social media that are so important. Our people are designed to train you how to use this. They'll do the work for you. And then they'll also come back and lay out a plan for you on a daily basis to do your social media. If you can spend 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you can manage your social media, which is very important because social media is a form of communication of the present and the future in our culture. Whether you like it or not, that's how it is. Rama. Blog training, same thing. Blog trainings are self-imposed editorials. This will drive people to your website. Next. Newsletter creation. See, what it comes down to, folks, in today's world, if you don't have these things and you're a new author, you're not seen as a credible source. This is like somebody trying to sell you a car who doesn't have a business card. These are the things that your fans will be looking for. These are the things that your readers will look for. And they're also looking to discredit you. So if you're not involved in these things, they will discredit you. You don't have a lot of chances, a lot of people. Rama? Book reviews. How many of you go to Amazon and buy books? How many of you look at the reviews before you buy a book? If you're looking at a first-time author's book, 85% of the sales that happen on Amazon, unrecommended sales for a first-time author, are based upon reviews of the book. We take you through a process to have the book reviews. Modern print and online media, we teach you how to write press releases, who to send them out to, and in fact, we send them out for you. Your book release, date, and plan. This is when after we've done all those other steps, I literally sit down with you. We talk about what you've done, what we're going to do, and when the release date is going to be. And this is the Amazon bestseller list we have. Now, Amazon is not the biggest bestseller list in the country. It's the third biggest. But the majority of New York Times bestsellers started out where? Amazon. We have a system where 95% of the fiction, nonfiction books we take on will become number one Amazon bestsellers, 75% of the fiction books. All the books we choose to take on, what means we have to talk to you a little bit, make sure we're good, compatible with each other, all will become bestsellers. We literally have a person we bring in, this is all she does. She'll talk to you, she's very nurturing, she's very guiding, she'll lead you through the entire process. She'll tell you everything she's doing as she does it. Within 2.5 to 3 months, she'll be a bestseller. Now, New York Times looks for bestsellers where? Yeah. Conventional book publishers look for books where? Amazon. They're trend followers. So on these programs, my assistant Ren's in the back of the room. If any of you want to be able to speak to me or Ram about that, you can let us know on the way out. We'll make time to talk. It's a good time to talk now because next week we're running into holiday seasons. But we'd be more than happy to talk to you and see if we're compatible, see if we're a good match, to see if we can make something work between us. Ram, are there any other slides I've missed? All right. I want to go ahead and answer whatever questions you may have. And feel free to answer any. Yes, miss.
How do you do that as an audiobook?
Oh, it's an audiobook? Could you repeat that question on the microphone so John can get it and everyone can hear us across the world?
A book with pictures. How is that done as an audiobook?
You know, it would depend upon which format you're going to use. But as an audiobook, there's a few things you can do. You can have the pictures literally pop up on the screen of the computer or the book reader or the MP that you're using. Or you can actually have people go to your website, say, you want to see a picture of my husband Bob, use this link and go there. What we can do now, technology-wise, is amazing. I don't know how many of you own iPads? Okay, a book on iPad, for example, miss, you can take a regular book, but you can insert videos. Like I'm a big yoga fan, so I bought a lot of Rodney Yee programs, and I'll read a page or two of text, and then there's a video there I can click on. You can do the same thing with any type of book that you want. But I recommend very strongly diversification. So try to publish in several different forms at the same time. Because it's just like fishing. You want to get a fish, it's better. You get a better chance of 3 hooks in the pond than just one. Okay? Thank you. Gwen?
Do you have a way of getting ebooks in libraries?
Yes. Ebooks are going to be appearing in libraries more consistently. In fact, they're available through libraries now. And then there's also ebook libraries outside of the brick and mortar libraries. So that's where the world's going. We're moving in the direction of what used to be conventional publishers becoming vanity publishers or boutique publishers. And the majority of books will be published through ebooks. In fact, our friends at the Wall Street Journal even said 3.5 years ago, they came out with an article that said for the first time in history, some other version of a book other than hard copy is now the leading seller. And that was 3.5 years ago that ebooks took over the high rank on regards to the number of books sold. So that's where the world's going. So we're going to have ebook libraries without the brick and mortar ones probably. Not my decision. Yes, sir. Thank
Do you accept children's books, and if so, who provides the illustrator?
Who provides the illustrator for your book?
Yes.
If you go through our system, we do. We do. Other questions? Right up here. This is how Gwen gets her exercise. Leading you through stretching exercises and dancing around the room. Doing a hell of a job, by the way.
Thank you. This isn't a question, it's a comment. I somehow found out about iUniverse, and I did do some due diligence reading about it, but I have still been stalked by one of their representatives who keeps communicating with me and trying to eliminate all of my concerns about it. So thank you for addressing that.
Sure. Again, I'm not trying to disparage anybody, but I do want you to know the financial realities of these situations. And for every iUniverse, there's another 15 or 20 smaller versions of iUniverse that would put you in the same derogatory position. Is that political enough? Politically correct enough?
With regards to the audiobooks, and is iTunes the current platform that you would go through?
No, it's not the only platform. There's several sub-platforms that are outside of Apple, but iTunes was the initial platform, and they're probably going to be the ones that are going to succeed the longest and stay in the business the farthest. Okay?
What about if you have a lot of drawings in your book and you want them to be dimensional?
Okay. That's very simple. What we do is we can take the drawings, reduce them to what we need, and then they can be fit into where you need them to be in your book. It's pretty simple. The only problems we run into, and this is true with any publisher, not just what the servicers we use, is color. Sometimes with color, you need different paper, especially in the hard copy. Ebooks, it isn't so much of a problem. But drawings, simple black and white drawings, very simple to do. Very simple to do.
I do all my own editing.
Just a minute, let Gwen get you on the mic. We have over 150 people scattered across the globe, and we'd like to hear your questions too. And without the microphone, they can't. Thanks, Ice.
Thank you. I do all my own editing. Would you be against that?
I wouldn't be against it. I'd want to take a look at your book.
Okay.
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 I know that I spent years learning to do my own editing, and I'm okay. You know, and I'm okay. I'm as good as you can probably get, but I'm okay. I'm not great. And an outside editorial eye with a different viewpoint can oftentimes show me something in 10 minutes that I couldn't find in 10 years.
Okay.
So as long as you be open to the outside opinion of someone else that has your best interests in mind.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks.
Okay, since you've done the ebook, the audio, and the pod, and you have the conventional publisher come waltzing to your door, can you still keep control of the ebook?
When that happens,
audio,
you
and-
call me.
Okay.
Okay? I've been dealing with these people for 3 decades. And I will teach you exactly what to say and how to say it. But if they come to you, you keep everything but the conventional book rights. Okay, but there's a certain way you play the game. And one book, for example, I did, just to give you an insight into my negotiation skills. I had this one publisher come to me and wanted me to write a book. And they were going to give me every bit of money I wanted. And I said, okay, but they said, but there's one other bit of bad news. I said, bad news? They said, we need the book in 6 months. Well, I write a book in a few days, but I'm not going to tell them that. I said, 6 months? You got to be kidding me. You want 6 months? You're asking the impossible. Okay, we'll give you twice as much money as you want. Okay, we'll give you 10% on top of that. Okay. I wrote the book in 4 days. I sat it on a shelf. This is a true story. I wrote it in 4 days, sat it on a shelf. I didn't want to mail it in to them until the day before because I didn't want them to know how easy it was for me to write a book. I literally had to blow the dust off the sucker. And then I FedExed it in, and I called and said, oh my God, I can't believe I just got it done and just mailed it to you. Oh, they said, you're a hero. I'm like, yeah. Sat on my shelf for 5.5 months. So there's a way to deal with these people. that you can get the maximum deal that benefits you, but also doesn't take advantage of their generosity. So if that happens, you just call me. I'll do it gratis, no problem. What's that?
It just appears that you've done all the work for the other 3 systems.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
all the publishers, the conventional ones, wanting all of it.
That's absolutely right. You've done everything, so it's only fair that you look to be compensated at least 5 to 6 times as much as they would normally give you. That's absolutely right, and that's how you have to look at it. If you've done all the work. Now, we've been trained over the last several hundred years to give up our rights, give up our income, because that was just the norm. That doesn't make it right. But your thinking's right in line with what it should be. Other questions? We've got Gwen on the move tonight.
That's right.
What tools would you use or recommend using to create the audiobook, like software programs?
Software programs?
Yeah.
Quark is a little bit outdated, but I think the latest versions of Quark are still good. There's 2 primary programs that are utilized. Quark's one, I forgot the name of the other. To buy them, the programs is going to cost you around $1,000, $1,200, I believe. From what I know, not personally, but indirectly through our formatters, it's taken them 3 to 4 months to learn how to use it. I had one very ingenious, Rama. The other program is called InDesign, thank you. I had one very ingenious author who said, Sedona type of woman, I don't have a job, I don't have anything to do, I live in the back of my truck. So I'm going to do this myself. And she worked really hard at it. It took her 1.5 years to format her first book. It looked like she did it in the dark. You know, she brought it over and she was real proud to show it to me. I'm like, how honest can I be without being insulting? You know, because it was cockeyed and didn't look well. So for me, personally, how I look at things, I always just go to a professional. I realize I can do certain things, and I have certain talents, and there are certain things I can do through effort, but I don't want to do those effort things. So I'll never do it as well as someone that really cares. You know what I'm saying? That's just me. Thank you. This gentleman right over here.
Okay, you saw my book the last time I was here. It's all pictures with a little bit of writing. How would you do that on audio? How would you do that on audio?
Again, you can have accompanying photographs in different ways, but yours is basically an older child's book.
Yeah.
So I really, there's readers out there for kids now where photos pop up and then the audio pops up behind it. That's what I would do. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Gwen, you're doing a hell of a job, by the way.
I'm a new Mac user, and I know that there's some format for, there's some program for writing a book. I'm not familiar with it yet.
Yeah.
Are you?
There's several versions. There's several programs for writing a book. Max tries to spearhead that because they see themselves more of from an artistic viewpoint than most people. It's kind of funny you asked that because I was just sitting around doing nothing the other night, and I was watching a basketball game and looking at apps on Mac for books. There's some excellent technical ones out there, but none of them take into consideration the heart and soul of the author. None of them put you into the author within state to write a book, so I wouldn't recommend them. I'd recommend buying my app when I do it, whenever I get to it, which may be for a few years.
No, I just didn't know if it was a structural program for formatting or what it does at all.
Structure's highly overrated on a book. When we write a book, if we're really connecting with a book that's already done, the structure's already built into it. Oftentimes when we try to take a cerebral approach to writing, we try to establish a structure that is not conducive to what the book that's trying to come out of us needs. So I let the structure come through it. If I were you, if you can find the time, just show up at a retreat and write your book in a weekend and get it over with. Enjoy yourself, go through some enlightenment, and go back to your normal life when you're done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I'm in Sedona.
You a Steelers fan?
Yeah, I lived in Pittsburgh for 26 years.
Where in Pittsburgh?
Washington County area, South Hills area.
Last time I lived there, I lived in the South Hills area, Upper St. Clair.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead and lift that at your lips. And
Okay.
Let me hear what you have to say.
I just finished a book that automatic writing, and it's very timely and it needs to be out now. So I'm very interested in what you're saying, and I'd like to know, just call you? I mean, how do I get my book to you?
See Ren? There's Ren right back there. Okay. She'll set up a time if we can talk. You can either speak to Ram or I. Again, we can take 6 people in to our program. We'll do that before the end of the year. But I'd rather have the opportunity to talk to you casually when I was nice and calm and not at the end of an evening. And we'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. And that goes for all of you. Okay? We don't have any bad clients because we take time getting to know each other before. So if any of you need to speak to us, now's a good time. Because around January 15th, things start getting a little crazier for me. And Rama's always available, and he's extremely insightful and caring. Any other questions? Right over here. I swear you're all raising your hands in sequence. Only make Gwen walk as far as she has to to deliver the microphone. But I want to thank you again for your questions, because I know these are a reflection of a lot of the questions people who are watching us online would like to have asked. Good seeing you again. I think you're sitting in the same chair as the last lecture, too.
I'm kind of like that.
Yeah?
Like at your retreats, I like to write in longhand. So how do you approach that and revise it and get it quickly?
You know, I've
Still
been
have to
teaching
type it.
retreats for about 26 years, and for the first 23 of the years, I made people write in longhand, because it's the best way to reach a deepest connection. I've finally overcome my old set in stone ways, and now I encourage people to go to the keyboard only because it's faster. But if you want to write in longhand, 35% of our people do, and that's fine with me. As long as you write on large, lineless pieces of paper. Large, lineless pieces of paper. And you have a fast, smooth, cheap pen. Cheap is very important, because the cheaper it is, the more ink gets to the ball, and that ink is what lubricates that pen across the paper. Okay, so that's fine. Didn't you win a retreat last time or something here?
No, we signed up for one.
Okay, well, you're all set. Yeah.
We'll be there.
Any other questions?
Only from the middle of the room.
Well, Gwen, would you mind bringing the 2 boxes up? You all got those little red tickets? Okay. The price of our retreats for next year is $16.95. We're going to give away, I don't know how many do we agree on, 6 or 12, at $1,000 off, and you can attend any retreat you want next year at that price. And we take payment programs if necessary. Gwen, bring those up. And Skylar, would you come up here, please? This is where Skylar really shines. She gets to choose the tickets. A lot. How many are we choosing, Ren? First 6 out of here. You got your tickets out? This is like bingo. Edwards. Paula Edwards? All right. Ren's marking you down. So if you want to attend, if you want to take advantage of this, you can attend a retreat for $6.95 next year. Okay? Any retreat that we do. Now, also, I want to remind you that we have retreats that are attended remotely. Again, Ram has been such a blessing in my life. About 2 years ago, he was willing to stand up to my anger, and he said, we should do these retreats remotely. Can't do them remotely. People got to be here in person. Well, he stuck with me long enough and established the technology that literally at our retreats, we have almost as many people attend remotely as live now. So if any of you feel that I want to go to a retreat, but I'm not good in groups, not that anyone in the group really cares that you're there, because they're all into their own thing. But if you have a sequestered space at home or a hotel you like to go to, you can always attend remotely, and they actually work just as well. All right, Sky, pull out the next one. Did a great job on that first one. What's that say? Can you read this? Great anticipation, aren't we? Oh, okay. Snowy? All right. All right, pull another one, girl. Doing a great job. Number 2746796. You're going to want to go to a second one after the first one anyway.
I need a name. What's the name?
Here comes Skyla again. Oh, this is a magical one. Liv? All right. How many more we got going there? 2 more? You're also quiet. It's just great anticipation. You fall asleep. The Red Planet Diner is still open tonight. I've been in shock ever since they closed down Denny's. Where'd you go after 10 o'clock? Don Del Vecchio. Ah!
You know what we're doing this year.
Yeah. Edelson? Adelson. Edelson. All right, choose somebody else. Yeah, have to be present. I'm going to read the number off this one. 928, this is the phone number. 928-592-9132. All right. Yes.
What's the name?
And then we get the next box too?
Yeah, I think we should, because
Okay. Okay, go ahead. 6 more out of here. You're all so quiet still. You know, even if you don't win, if you're one of the first 13 that registers for a retreat, you get in at half price, which is $847.50. This saves you a few $100 this way. It's our Lucky 13 program. You're doing a great job, by the way. 67.
So you're picking 6 more?
Suzanne Hossain.
All right, pick another one, girl. Whose phone number is 300-1243? 1293. Bingo.
What's the name? Name, please? Nancy last? Stafford.
Now, if you choose not to use this, you can just let us know and we'll give it away to somebody else. But it is $1,000 off. 145. Bingo! I'm dying to say that.
Boy, I've got a Beverly LikeYourLife@Rogers.com.
Okay. 3 more? Skylar, you're doing a tremendous job. She's way underpaid. 87. $87.
That's Carrie Lopez.
Carrie Lopez. $119.
Sheila Savage.
2 more. R.A. Gates. Ticket number is 274-6963. Cotter. R.A. Cotter?
You know what? He had to leave.
Okay, put him down then. 1 more? You all look so stoic. Deborah? There you go. You're meant to do this, girl. She just attended a retreat in November.
What's the last name?
Oh, let's pull 1 more just for the heck of it. Try this one. Looks lucky. Thank you, Skyla. Oh, this one's got writing all over it. What's that one say?
Give me the hard ones. Linda Schwartz?
Linda Schwartz. All right, Linda. Thought it was Laura too. Good. Thank you. So, just a few parting words before we leave this evening. On the way out, and don't leave yet because I do have a few things to say. If you won one of the retreats and you do want to take advantage of it, you can stop, see Gwen or Ren, and they'll sign you up. If you need a payment program, they can do that. Just choose the retreat. If you want to speak to us about the publishing program, the best-selling program, and being considered for that, you can see Rama. And the best way is not to talk to him now, because there'll be a number of people who want to talk to him. But we'll put you on our list, and we'll set up a time we can talk conveniently. There's also a copy or two of one of my books back there. One is You Can Write a Book in a Weekend. That was a #1 bestseller. Used our system on Amazon. I want to thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I made a 2-year promise to myself that I would teach for 2 years to pay back my debt, and I'd reevaluate after 2 years. And I continue to teach because it makes such a difference in other people's lives. It makes a huge difference in my life. And so I do want to thank you for braving the cold weather and coming out here tonight and joining us. I hope it's not too long again since we see each other again. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you. Good night. Good job, Sky.